Well, hey guys, welcome. Welcome. This is All Minus One, and I am Bill. If you do not know, if you are not aware, if you haven't been here before, um, I'm not going to do a long stream today, guys. My guest had to cancel. He will be with me on Tuesday. Christian Watson will be on with me Tuesday. We'll talk about some new stuff and his background and other things. But for today, right now, currently, I'm probably going to stream for an hour. We're going to talk about some news events, just you and I. And I don't know. We're just going to make some sense of the world. Um, one of the reasons why I am doing this today, as far as a shorter stream, because I normally stream for 2 to 3 hours, I should just let you all know. If you weren't aware, my other show, The Ends Justify the Memes, was canceled on Wednesday. And that's because my wife's dog was having cardiac failure. And we had to take him to the vet, to the emergency room. They had to put him in a hyperbaric chamber to get him oxygen. And he's going to be all right. But in any case, she was really upset. And of course, we have a 3-week-old. So after that 24-hour period, I had a few beers last night. Well, I had a beer and wine, and I was over on Sniper Stream. And yeah, by the time I was off that stream, I was pretty good and done. So I don't really drink anymore either. So um, in any case, I don't feel the worst, but I could certainly feel better. So guys, I am running through StreamYards now, which is maybe going to be the normal from now on. So things might change here a little bit with that. As far as backgrounds, I might figure out some overlays and some other stuff. But for right now, I'm going to use StreamYards because I want to try and get guests on a little bit more often. And it's also, it doesn't bog down my system. Although right before I went live, my internet went out on my computer. Now, it wasn't out, but it did go out on my computer. So, and by the way, I know I titled the stream, Bill got a haircut. Believe it or not, I did get a haircut. I haven't had a haircut since November. So I didn't get it cut short, but it was trimmed and evened out, and we're going to still grow it out. And, I'm still going to be little John Wick over here. So in any case, that is pretty much that. Change a few things here because in my settings, because I see that Chili is the only one in my chat, even though it says I have more viewers. But that's no biggie. Today, again, it's not going to be very long, and I'm doing this for consistency. Speaking of which, folks, I will be streaming Tuesdays, I think, from now on as much as I can. So Tuesdays and Fridays, that's going to be the schedule. Wednesdays, of course, over on the Ends Justify the Memes, and probably Sundays on there eventually. Still got to figure that out. With a newborn, 3 weeks in, I was just commenting to my wife today that it seems like that it has been, we've had her forever already, which is good. It's a good thing because I want to be in the moment as much as possible, enjoy, her little sweetness. Hey there, Holly. Yes, good to see that I'm back. Yes. Not for a long one today, though. So let's see what all I have in here. So I'm going to pull up a news station. I don't know if you guys are aware of, called NTD or Entity News, and they are New York based, but they are formed in they're formed out of former Chinese folks that fled communist China. And it's pretty much straight news. So I wasn't aware of them before, but I came across this and I really kind of like the reporting because it's nothing too ridiculous. It's just pretty much straight to the story. So go check them out. Give them a sub. And we're going to watch a little bit of their coverage of a few things because as you see, the first story here says inside reports from Cuba as unrest continues. I don't really care about Biden and Merkel and all that, dog and pony show stuff because that's just nonsense. Like, who cares? And then I want to show you some stories from today. But what I really want to talk about or start to focus on here is this whole uprising in China. Now, you guys may or may not have heard about the potential secession, the calls for secession, peaceful divorce. The study that was done the other day, I actually meant to get this up for the stream, but I'll get it off my phone real quick. I was busy doing something else. I'm going to make ribs tonight, so I had to get the dry rub on there before let it sit before I started streaming. All right, so I'll get this up in a second. In any case, I'll show you this picture here in a moment. I actually saw this Wednesday. Might have been Tuesday night even, but for certain Wednesday, because I was going to try and get it in the show. And it didn't. Of course, we didn't have a show. So, no biggie. But this is a very interesting study. Tim Pool did a big segment on it yesterday as well. So sorry guys, it's taking me forever, but it'll be up here in a second. Here we go. Let me download this sucker. And then let's see here. Actually, you know what? I forgot. Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry, guys. I'm still working out on the StreamYards thing. Tank's the one that's got all that experience with StreamYards, So here we go. This is secession, support for seceding from the U.S. to form a new regional union. So we have the Pacific at 39% and the Mountain region at 32%, the Heartland at 30%, the South at 44%, go us, and then the North at 34%. So that's pretty high. And it says source June 2021 YouGov/Brightline Watch survey. And there's a few things here that I think that are important to address. One is that, as I will always say, we have too many people. We have just way too many people and not enough accountability, right? We have not enough representation, and we are pretty much estranged from our government. And that's not good. You can't have a government for and by the people and be estranged from it. Now, I know Joe Biden, he claims that the vote makes sure that doesn't happen, but that's not really the case. That's not really the case, because you can vote anybody in, and of course they manipulate those things. We saw that there was some news out of Georgia the other day, Arizona as well. Again, I'm not going to get into the weeds of that, but you can go look into it for yourself. Something like 74,000 extra ballots were found that were not sent out. Interesting. 74,000 ballots, that is, that were counted that weren't sent out. That's pretty bad. In any case, though, one of the things that would help us have some accountability is actually more layers of government, and keeping the other levels of government from getting too big. Something I've played with the idea of is having regional governments. Now, I wouldn't break them down like this. I think this is ridiculous. I would probably split the South into two regions alone. I would split what they call the Heartland into two regions. The Northeast can remain, but the mountain zone would be the same thing. And basically, if we had a Pacific area, that would just be the coastline because most of the Pacific states are actually very based. They're very red. Remember, California was a red state forever. So there is that. Oh, Holly says, thank you for the share. Definitely will check them out. Yeah, on the NTD. Yeah, we're going to watch some of that here in a minute. But guys, if we had regional governments, they could basically speak for the people in a certain area or region to some degree and maybe slow down the federal expansion. Another thing that I think is very important that people don't talk about or bring up is the idea of city states. New York City alone is huge. And basically, New York City and Long Island should be their own states. Long Island's quite conservative. New York City itself, the 5 boroughs, are not. The rest of New York State is very conservative. It's basically Trump country. Why should the city, even though I know it has several million people in it, why should that city do basically control all the governance of the rest of the state and represent all the people? It doesn't make any sense. So what we should do then is give certain cities, any city, basically over a certain number, their own statehood. We should have city states that take care of themselves, and they can fall or rise on their own merits. Now, traditionally, practically around the globe, city states have been the most prosperous states that there are. They have some of the lowest taxes, if any taxes at all, and some of the highest standards of living. So that might not be the case in all city states, but that is very, very common. And Kizza says this is why we need Kizzaism. I knew you would say that though, Kiz, as you always do. Hey man, if you're not busy, actually, Kizza, I can send you a link if you want to come in, man. We can chat. I just can't stay on for more than really an hour today. So you let me know, buddy. Because it'd be great to bounce some ideas off of some folks. But yeah, we need to do a serious overhaul, and this is telling of these areas. Obviously, the West Coast, being a Democrat stronghold, has a large amount of people wanting to secede, and I am all about it. I mean, all right, I'll DM you the link, Kizza. I am all about it. Let them leave. So, live production on the fly here. I don't want that up. There he is. Sorry, Kiz, had to find you in the Discord there. That was weird. Anyways, I don't know if you guys got that on your end, but my screen just went blank for a minute. Oddly. Anyways, so you guys, again, have probably seen this. Ted Pool talked about it. Big deal yesterday. We talked about it a little bit over on Sniper Stream last night. Again, though, I was drinking. So, mind you, whatever I said, Drunk Bill is not necessarily correct about things. But the reality is that that we are going to necessarily balkanize. And one of the things that we talked about last night on Sniper's stream was this idea that we couldn't just secede because of nukes. Yiz brought it up, and she's right. We can't just give over those nukes to a new power. That's a hard deal. This is one of the issues that they dealt with the Soviet Union breaking up, except for the Soviet Union, the way it was organized, the military entities had a lot of power and control. And as those things fell away, a lot of those people sold off a lot of weapons. And that was a big fear forever, that they would sell off nuclear weapons. So it's really interesting how these things will go. what we're seeing, I'm hoping that the peaceful divorce will come down to something like this, something like regional governments, something like electoral colleges and the state level. Again, I think that the states should automatically they should automatically split up at a certain point of population growth. You cannot control a region of people and have a government for the people and by the people and all that good stuff when you have no real accountability and you have politicians who do not do for those people. And there's not anything in common with anyone in DC with most people in Texas, I can tell you. As you guys are quite aware, I am around the DC area. Oh, I just caught that. It has West Virginia part of the heartland. Screw that. We'd be part of the South. But if you guys didn't know, that little corner, tiny piece of West Virginia is out where I live. It's quite close to DC. And people in DC don't realize how close West Virginia is to DC. So Kizza is here. Let's add Kizza in.
Hello there.
Welcome.
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm good, bud.
Yeah. I know full well. I just thought I might chime in my propaganda of Kizzerism because, goddamn it, the West needs it.
Sure, man. I mean, it'll help me out because, again, I had different plans for the day. I was supposed to talk to Christian Watson, and then the last 2 days have been kind of weird. So
yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's been a chaotic recent weeks in recent times. But
yeah,
I mean, this whole subject of successions from the union. I mean, I remember hearing talks about this back when Trump, with the 2016 election, there was talks about succession from the union with the likes of Texas.
well, there have been talks about that for a long time. There was talks about that in the early 2000s. Texas says it all the time. Of course, Texas always makes the claim, well, we were a state. We were our own country before we were a state. Well, so was every other state. Each state is its own sovereign, independent country. We have a failure of understanding of what federalism is, which is why the federal government's out of control.
Well, I mean, because the issue I have is that if you're going to have a quote unquote nation state, then I would argue one aspect of official nation state is having your own currency and having your own proper borders.
Well,
which is why for me, I don't count the likes of Monaco or San Marino, for instance, as states. I don't, because they don't have borders. They don't have proper borders. They're literally just tax havens within a country.
well, you are correct about that. It's some of them go, but
Yeah.
regardless, if they do have independent sovereignty, and we maybe can't. You can talk about Monaco or something like that, but I'm thinking more of like European style, oh, good Lord, why can't it like Luxembourg or something like that?
I mean, Luxembourg is just a freaking tax haven. That's where all the European dirty money gets flushed through.
It's still an independent city-state nation, though, that's ruled by two princes. So,
I mean, you say that, but then again, they are part of the European Union, and as we all know, all nations in the European Union are superseded by, are not technically independent sovereign nations, despite what many people would claim.
But the European Union is just another example of federalism, and that's why people were wary of it in the beginning. Because people know that's what all this movement's always toward, building up the world government, and the world government's already here. It's just how much official power do they have? And right now, the United States is that military arm of that world government, right? So, and of course, the UK is used as well because we have that Anglo-American alliance.
Oh yeah, I mean, we technically were the heads of the Five Eyes.
Right.
As it was known as. But sadly, that's basically been broken up thanks to New Zealand's changes siding with China. Australia's, you don't know what side of the bed Australia's waking up to. I mean, Canada, we all know full well Trudeau's pro-China. I mean, the Biden administration, I mean, they're pro-EU, so they're basically traitors. So that basically leaves us on our own.
Well, and then we have the the was it from MIT? Is that what it was? That whatever it was, the predictions. I'm looking it up right now. That the society will collapse by around 2040, and this is an interesting prediction because a lot of people have. Again, Tim's been covering this. I'm trying to find the article. I know I had it
Yeah.
the other day. Um, but there are numerous articles. The Daily Mail has it, but the Vice article has it specifically that they talked to that this prediction in the 70s was based on the Club of Rome's data, which is really interesting because the Club of Rome is one of those internationalist NGOs. They're one of those behind the scene groups that most people aren't aware of, they don't know about, and they dictate policy. And what the Club of Rome basically is former people who were in the UN or worked with the UN having their own advisory boards to these other nation states. So it's a really strange thing the way we're organized now because there's like a veil over the eyes of folks, and that we are independent sovereign nations, and technically we are. But the coronavirus things and the lockdowns and the masks and all that are a perfect example of how the reality is all this stuff comes out of some sort of centralized organization like the WHO, which again is connected to the UN. So I don't know, Kizza.
Yeah. I mean, personally, the way I see it is when I've had this argument with the question of sovereignty, especially with the Brexit narrative, for like 5-6 years ago. I always ask them, okay, then what is the definition of sovereignty? And almost every single person could not answer that question. And for those who who don't know, the sovereignty is supreme power and authority over a nation. Now, as you very well know, Bill, if you take laws and orders from a foreign government, you're no longer a sovereign nation.
Right.
Now, but here's my issue. If people are going to pretend that we are absolutely sovereign, then by this own logic, organizations such as the UN, NATO, the EU, or even legislation like the Geneva Convention, surely those things are worthless and they're basically footballs which we can kick about between the nations.
Well, I mean, the way I see it is those things are already established, right? They were established by people who wanted them. And here we go. I finally found it.
Yeah, I
was searching everywhere for the particular Vice article, and I finally found it.
Well, because it says the end of the world, MIT prediction from 1973 is proving true on bigthink.com.
Yeah.
And it's like the Median article and...
Right. So MIT predicts the 1972 that society will collapse this century. New research shows we're on schedule. I think a lot of this is projection, though, because again, the Club of Rome, those folks, and that is in this article, those folks are part of this Malthusian-style death cult that believes that the world is going to end because of climate change. And by the way, the study that they take that from, that we have 12 years. The study doesn't say that we had 12 years to end climate change, that it was irreversible or anything like that. The scientists have even come out and said, no, that's not what we were trying to do. We were just trying to light a fire under people's butts, but that's not really what's happening.
Well, of course not, because they always have to exaggerate the fucking claims. I mean,
right.
I mean, when it comes to subject of climate change, I mean, hell, I remember like as a kid, they called it global warming. Become like 2010, they changed it to climate change because they couldn't call it global warming because not everywhere was becoming warmer.
Well, and you're still in your 20s, right, Kizza?
Yeah, late 20s, but like,
right. but I'm saying that when I was a kid, that we were calling it global warming.
Exactly. But then they changed it to climate change, and I'm just like, okay, so you've changed it, so that clearly means you were wrong. That's by default an admission that you were wrong. I mean, hell, I remember not that long ago seeing the list of every single quote-unquote climate prediction being proved wrong. And it's a freaking massive list. And I'm just like, my lord, these people have the same level of accurate predictions as the MIT, as freaking the IMF does when it comes to recessions. Why do we listen to these people?
Right.
I mean, like, for me, like, how many times does someone have to be wrong in order to be discredited.
Well, again, if you have the right politics, it doesn't matter. That's always the thing. It like as much as I go on and try and be fair to people who are not of high intellect, and I really do, and I don't really have a problem with people who are of low intellect going about and doing their own thing. But it really does amaze me how stupid freaking people are. And like they just don't get it, and they keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over again. And one of the biggest mistakes that we make is listening to these asshats in the government and being like, oh well, they're okay. Like people actually, I know Hillary Clinton was a horrible candidate, but people actually liked her. Some people actually liked her, thought she was great, or at least better than Trump, which is insane. She tells blatant lies, said that she was under gunfire coming into Kosovo when we have video footage of the event, but people just ignore that. And then it's, the TDS stuff. Orange man bad, Trump lies, nah, nah, nah.
I know. It just makes me laugh. Like for me, like people don't want to be told the truth. They just want to keep their illusions flowing. And I'm just at the point where I'm just like, no, I don't care about your illusions. Okay, I will gladly destroy them if that means turning you into a crying. If that turns you into a fetus, then so be it.
Yeah. Let me show you this real quick or read this for people who are just listening. It says in 1972, a team of MIT scientists got together to study the risk of civilizational collapse. The system dynamic model, published by the Club of Rome, right, identified impeding limits of growth that meant industrial civilization was on track to collapse sometime within the 21st century due to over exploration of planetary resources. Now, this is a long time coming. They've been saying they talk about peak oil, all of those things. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And now we have leftists complaining about billionaires going to outer space because they want to be able to mine our eventually mine our solar system, which would be a great thing for us. And the leftists are like, no, we have to leave space alone too. So
Well. I hate to sound like a hippie here, Bill, but hear me out. What I'm about to say here, right? Mankind, we've already done enough damage and destruction on this planet. Can we really trust our fellow man to not do the same thing when it comes to our solar system?
but here's my thing is that the only answer to this ever is that we all must die. I mean, the only answer to this is the death cult kind of answer. I'm saying at least from the left, right?
Yeah.
Or that most people need to die except for the select brave few. And they'll all be actors and actresses. My wife and I watched The Hunt again last night. Like she loves that movie. So every time we watch that movie,
honestly, I think they watched too much. I think they were trapped in a room for about a month, and all they had to do was watch repeats of Deep Impact.
yeah.
I mean, there's a freaking film from the 90s. I mean, actually, what was it? Actually, come to think of it, Bill, what was it about the 90s with all these post-apocalyptic sort of environmental films that came out then? You had
Well,
Deep
it's the same
Impact,
thing. It was all, but
Volcano.
that's all psychological conditioning. It's all programming, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it really is. You have to understand that that's what all the woke scold stuff is, and that's ruined every single movie in the last 10 years, right?
yeah. I mean, to be fair, like the 90s, like you had like some great movies came in the 90s, and then like after 94, 95, there was so much garbage that came afterwards.
Well, I mean, the 90s, there were good movies and there were bad movies like any era, but the 90s were really considered the second golden age of Hollywood. And
Well,
I'm
I
a
mean,
bit of a
1994 was a great year for movies.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna say
I mean,
I'm a bit of a film buff, although not as much as I used to be. I wanted to be a
yeah.
film director when I was young. So,
Yeah, I'm speaking to someone who's performed on stage as a kid.
yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I was in theater and everything else as well. So,
yeah.
just saying. Um, but yeah, that was considered like a second golden age in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because you had movies like Saving Private Ryan come out. You had like movies like
Pulp
Schindler's
Fiction.
right. You had Schindler's List. You had Pulp Fiction. That kind of thing. You had a lot of
Yeah.
interesting, serious movies and a lot of good popcorn flicks. Um,
And then you had like utter garbage and
yeah.
just recycled trash. Like, I mean, like a good example. I'll give you a trope. A person and a random animal become best of as strangers become best of friends. What do you think of?
Say that again.
A random kid or teenager meets a random animal of some sort, and they become the best of friends.
Okay.
What do you think of?
Like for movies, what you're asking me? That's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
What film pops into your head when I give you that description?
I don't know. I think I like old school like Benji or something.
Okay, okay. I'll give you. Okay. Do you remember Free Willy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then after Free Willy came out, there was about 7 or 8 Free Willy knockoffs right after that.
Yeah, I mean, that was like really early 90s. Like I said,
Yeah. I
that
mean,
period sucked. The
yeah,
80s sucked. I mean, again, there were some good movies, but
yeah.
film film was not at any sort of height then. And it's kind of like we've done the same thing. Marvel was doing really good and it went downhill because it wanted to get political. But a lot of this, like I
Yeah.
said, you have to understand is that Hollywood is trying to sell you something. They have been forever. You want to talk about, we talk about all these things. One of the things I wanted to get into was Cuba and South Africa.
Oh,
Um,
oh, 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 oh,
what
oh.
the problem that we are seeing here in the United States is because McCarthy didn't go far enough and
Once
wasn't
again,
allowed to go far enough. And honestly, everyone gets this wrong anyways because McCarthy never studied Hollywood. He only looked at the government, but they think that he went after Hollywood, and Hollywood was making communist propaganda movies at the time. Um,
well, yeah.
if
I
you
mean,
ever seen, have you ever seen The Aviator with Leonardo DiCaprio?
I have not actually.
Okay, it's actually a really good movie. It's about Howard Hughes, but he's in a scene with Kate Blanchett, and I forget who she plays. She plays some famous actress. I can't remember her name off the top of her head, but she's talking to him. She's like, "Oh, we're all communist here." It's in the conversation in that movie because that was Hollywood. It always
Yeah.
has been, and
A good example of like films that I've heard people say really expose the real thinking of these types of people is you perhaps have heard of this, Eyes Wide Shut.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually the movie's weird, but I like Kubrick movies. I like weird movies. So
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I remember like I saw a review on that and I was thinking, what on earth is this? But then I thought to and then I remember catching the review again the second time, like, oh wait, now I get what it's trying to say. But it just makes me laugh when I hear about movies like why so many movies suck, and I'm just like, well, it's very simple. They forgot the most important thing, and it's about most films. It's about creating a world and letting people experience the world around them. Like a good example, a film I recently watched, and I don't care what anyone says, this is easily one of the best films ever made. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
oh yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I must have gone to see that in the theater 20 times.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, but it took forever for it to come out on VHS as well. It was like 2
Yeah.
years or a year and a half.
Well, yeah, but that was the era when like films used to take like a year or so to come
They
out
did.
on like
They took a long
yeah,
time, but that one particularly took a really long time because that was like my favorite movie as a kid forever.
exactly.
Um,
And like the big thing is that like unlike a lot of modern movies where they just tell you what's happening, you just look and it explains everything without saying anything.
right.
And that is a real trick in filmmaking, which you don't see nowadays.
Well,
Everything
I
you
always
just
said
got to
that about
explain everything.
right. I always said this about Star Wars and Han and Leia's love affair, especially in Empire,
Yeah,
versus, the whole Anakin Padme thing where it's I love you. No, I love
yeah.
you. I love you. I love you
Yeah,
too. I love
yeah,
you so
yeah.
much.
George definitely can't write love stories, but like, the issue with the whole Anakin Padme thing, and I've spoken about this with many hardcore Star Wars fans, is that I think the issue with it is that it wasn't set up the correct way. Because one suggestion I had when it comes to the whole romance thing is the fact that how it should have been set up is that Anakin does have a crush on Padme, but he's basically trying to like try and not play it cool, but basically stay true to his Jedi ways, quote unquote, and how he's taught. And he's basically trying to reject them. But Padme is sort of like teasing him and slowly sort of drawing him out. And I personally think it would have made more sense if, quote unquote, Padme seduced Anakin rather than the way they went about it. Because I think that it would have played much more into the whole role of defining the Jedi code versus his passion and love for her.
Well, I found all that. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like that they made the Jedi's like monks and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I get it, but
Yeah,
uh,
let's be frank here.
in the
When you have
expanded
like,
universe, the bottom line is in the expanded universe, right before they retconned everything, Luke
yeah,
Luke was married, Leia
yeah,
was obviously married. They restarted the Jedi Order, so I
yeah,
didn't like that they
yeah.
just threw that in there. It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, because I will say this though, and I don't care what anyone says. People will try and claim George Lucas. Oh, he already had the. I'll wait for Bill to get back.
No, I'm right here. I'm just grabbing
Okay,
something.
okay, yeah. I hear people say like, oh, the original trilogy, George already had everything written out and planned, and I don't care what anyone says. That is a big fat lie. Case in point, when Leia kisses Luke in Empire. Are you going to seriously tell me George Lucas forwarded that and said yes, that was acceptable? Very true. I love that. And
I'm with
and then
Sargon
in the
on
next,
this. I gave him
and then
money so I could have this shirt.
yeah, and then the next movie, it turns out they're siblings. Nah, nah, nah. I don't buy it. Literally, a lot of this was literally as he was going along, and it's blatantly obvious, especially when you look at if you watch them back to back, how like certain things don't quite add up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, like the whole thing, I grabbed that shirt
Yeah,
because
yeah, I do
Sargon
remember that
Sargon
shit.
is right. You know, Star Wars is Jedi propaganda. There's no balance to it. It's like
Oh
all
yeah, yeah,
good,
yeah.
you know,
Well,
and
well, 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 Bill. I don't care. Well, a certain man who shall not be named explained the entire Star Wars, the whole Star Wars saga. It's a giant propaganda plot by Palpatine.
there you go.
I mean, it's true. It's true.
All right. Well, we can keep talking about Star Wars and
Yeah, yeah.
non-relevant things, but let's talk about let's watch some of these news clips real quick.
Oh god, let's go. Let's go. These are going to be great. Ah, yes, 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 yes. The issues with Cuba.
Yeah, in NTD guys, you really ought to check them out. It's straight news.
Yeah, I've been kind of laughing at what's been going on in Cuba, but like, I'm highly skeptical on if what I'm seeing is true, or is it all just a good mirage?
Hold on. Let me make sure I have. I think I need to turn on the
Oh, sound share.
yeah,
And
the audio here. Again, guys, this is not my forte. I'm used to OBS. Once I got used to OBS, now I'm doing this. So, all right, let's try this again.
Looting and rioting. So far, over 2 thieves than requested.
Here we go.
Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Evelyn Lee. Here are today's top stories. We have an Arizona audit update. An audit company says 72,000 more ballots were received than requested. Like last month,
I said 74 earlier, I think. So 72,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
U.S. economic sanctions of being at the heart of Cuban crisis. But an expert tells us even if the sanctions go, they'd still be stuck with a communist regime. South Africa has deployed 25,000 troops in an effort to stop the looting and rioting. So far, over 2,000 people have been arrested and over 100.
And South Africa, guys, is a perfect example of where we're going. And I'll tell you, I've probably brought it up on here before. I had a conversation with a gentleman from South Africa several years ago at a bar, and he was like in his mid 50s or something, and he was just telling me, he's like, I can't believe the way America's going. These kids today, blah 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 blah. He's like, we went through this in South Africa, and he goes, and it's terrible. He's like, that's why I left. And of course, they're trying to get some sort of racial justice for something that, I mean, if you get down to the story, what actually happened in South Africa, the Zulus attacked the Dutch. That's what happened. And eventually the Dutch said, okay, we're not going to deal with you guys. That's essentially what happened. So, but that caused apartheid and all that. And of course, then we have the whole Nelson Mandela thing, and everyone seems to not be aware that Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. He was not a political prisoner, as most people were taught today. He was actually a terrorist. His wife would give you a tire necklace. If you don't know what that is, you can go look it up. It's not fun. They blew places up. Then he became the president, and he was a hero. and they started doing all this communist type stuff. And the interesting thing is that South Africa has a parallel society. They have in the cities, they have free markets, and then in the ghettos, it's all socialized. You can literally see the difference between what free markets bring and what socialism bring. And so now in the last few years, they've been murdering farmers, white farmers, saying that it's their land. They never even possessed the land before. And in the process of murdering the farmers, they don't know how to farm themselves. So again, this is a good reflection of what we're probably going to see happen in the United States if things get really out of hand. And they eventually will, I give it about 10 years before we pop off here. I don't know, Kez, what do you think?
I mean, I'm not surprised the state of South Africa. I mean, quite frankly, this is why imperialism is a good thing, and exactly why the English should never have left, because shit like this would never have happened.
I wouldn't say that imperialism is a good thing, but I'm definitely not. I definitely believe that colonialism actually advanced the world and improved people's lives more than it hurt. Because people can talk about all the suffering and evil things the British Empire did or any other empire. The bottom line is that the people that they did that to were doing it to each other anyways. This is just human nature. We have to be adults when we talk about this and not, get all butt hurt. Anyways, let me play this.
100 people have died. German Chancellor Angela Merkel visiting the White House. She and President Biden have a long agenda that includes a controversial Russian pipeline.
I will just comment. Why neither of them two wearing masks?
Right.
They're in an enclosed building and not wearing masks. I'm sorry. Can someone please arrest these two for violating COVID restrictions, please?
Yeah. So I think the lineup there was Cuba first, and then the unrest in South Africa, which are the main things I want to talk about. We won't get into Merkel and all that stuff. But Cuba's interesting too, because now, Biden's going and Kamala Harris, they're going, no, we don't want you folks. We don't want you anti-commies coming to the United States. When the left's always talking about refugees, all of a sudden we don't want these refugees, right? But it's also interesting because it's right off the coast of us. And now we also have the whole ordeal with Haiti and the assassination of the president last, what was that, Friday? So I have a clip from today from them that we'll play about that. But we're seeing lots of unrest all over the world. And it seems like the only places that are really, truly stable are like China, oddly enough. But that's because they'll, stomp on your neck if you get out of line. I'd say South Korea and Japan, maybe Singapore, those nations. But the West is in really, really rough shape.
Companies working to audit Maricopa County's election results give an update at a briefing today. NTD's Miguel Moreno has the details.
Oh, that's right. Elections first.
I highly recommend we do the canvassing.
Doug Logan is the CEO of Cyber Ninjas in audit.
See, that says 74. She said 72 earlier. So what's right?
Why not both?
Yeah, why not both? That's right. Huge discrepancy, though. More ballots received than sent out.
Company hired by the Arizona Senate. He recommended door-to-door canvassing to verify where ballots came from because there's a lot that's unaccounted for.
So, for example, we have 74,243 mail-in ballots where there is no clear record of them being sent.
That's 74,000 more ballots than sent. But he says this could be a clerical error, and one way to verify is through canvassing. The auditors say they need more items to complete the review, like ballot envelope images, routers, and other.
All right.
Access to third parties seeking to examine the voting machine systems. The other two counties have not made their intentions public yet. And over in Georgia, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is calling for the immediate firing of Fulton County's elections director Rick Barron and the county.
So that didn't happen. They called for the firing, but that didn't happen. If you guys weren't aware.
Registration chief Ralph Jones. This comes after Tucker Carlson tonight aired a segment Wednesday about a voting integrity
VP Harris's residence for a working complete the pipeline.
Oh, come on.
committee to investigate this January 6th Capitol breach. Leader McCarthy is now
least they called it a
tasked with
Capitol breach here.
choosing 5 more members to join the committee, although Pelosi has the final say. The committee will hold their first hearing at the end of this month. Trump has also recently expressed that Republicans should not work with Democrats on the bipartisan.
Here we
windows.
go. Let's get to it.
Many Cuban protesters are calling to be freed of the communist dictatorship, but not everyone sees the regime as a problem. Black Lives Matter accused the U.S. government's sanctions on Cuba of being at the heart of this crisis. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
Black Lives Matter weighed in on the Cuban crisis on Thursday. In an Instagram statement, they say inhumane U.S. sanctions on Cuba are at the heart of Cuba's current crisis and should be lifted. And
Now, Kizza, what do you think about that?
Last time I checked, didn't the whole U.S. sanctions, weren't they lifted in the Obama administration?
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. We definitely don't have any medical
Yeah.
or food restrictions on Cuba. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, I mean, last time I saw, I remember when the Top Gear reboot went to Cuba. I mean, they were happily importing in V8 engines from the United States themselves. So, and that would have been, and if they had sanctions, that would have cost them millions to do that. So I highly doubt that, especially when you see a lot of like modern cars that they're not rolling around in like busted old 50s and 60s Chevys, Fords, and Pontiacs and Dodges. So I call BS on the sanctions part, but then again, I don't know. Maybe during the Trump administration, it might have made a change.
I don't think that there are now. There are some restrictions. I think Obama didn't roll them all back, but my first argument is well, you know, I think I said this to somebody on Twitter because I saw Bernie Sanders tweeted it out. I don't really get on, I don't twat that much, but basically I saw Bernie Sanders talking about this and someone responded to it, and I'm like, I don't understand why you think that benevolent slavery is going to work out perfectly and internally, but it's externally that the issue is at. Like it's the external imports of things. If Cuba was once a very, very rich, wealthy nation, as it was, a vacation spot doing quite fine on its own, then I don't know why the current external systems are what's keeping it down, especially since regardless of whatever trade embargoes the United States might have, they still trade with Europe and other nations.
Exactly. So like they talk about trade embargoes, and I'm just like, this isn't the 1950s for Pete. This is the 1960s for Pete's sake after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Well,
Like,
what we've
seriously,
had,
grow up.
right? What we've had is Biden and Obama both praising Cuba. You remember when Obama was around, he basically was like, "Oh, I think there's a lot to learn from Castro, and there are criticisms from us as well." And da 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 da.
Yeah. Ignoring the fact that Castro was literally a terrorist who took power from Batista, who was technically an elected government. And also, what everyone seems to ignore is at the time when Batista was around, that was the leader before Castro came about. Believe it or not, Cuba was the richest country in all of Central and South America.
There you go, and that's what I'm saying.
was
They were right. They were doing great, unlike Haiti.
In fact, Bill, sorry to interrupt. Cuba were doing so well, they actually hosted 2 Grand Prix back in the 1950s.
There you go.
2 Grand Prix. And there's a famous story about the second one. They kidnapped the legendary Argentina driver, the rebels. They kidnapped the legendary Argentina Grand Prix driver, Fangio, so he couldn't take part in the race. Look it up if anyone thinks I'm lying about this. Look it up. I promise you.
This would be one I would like to have a discussion with Voldemort about, actually, even though I'd probably never talk to that guy. But because it's like, the stuff that he says in debates all the time about these countries and how these things would be better. I know he always brings up the study about co-ops in Uruguay. And I'm like, are you an idiot? Do you not know anything about Uruguay? Because when they went socialist.
Uruguay, you mean? Uruguay, you mean?
Yeah. Isn't that what I said?
Yeah. No, you say Uruguay. Not Uruguay, as in the actual South American country.
No, I think
Yeah, don't worry. But yeah, I know.
Whatever, Kizza. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, yeah. I mean,
Anyways, my point is I'm like, do you? Yeah, I'm like, do you understand the socialism that took place in these nations, and the loss of wealth that has happened? And you're like reading some study about some co-op, which, I mean, he didn't even understand again that a co-op is the same as a corporation, folks, because that's what those things are. They're public bodies and publicly owned. They're not private entities. They're not private businesses.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, all co-op is basically the workers claiming ownership of a company that they work for. It's a bit like saying my work turns into a working co-op, whereas I become a part owner of the company in question. I'm just like, one, I wouldn't want to be a part of that, not because I don't think I'd be a good at it. I'd be vastly downright better than most of the management we have today. Is because I have to deal with all the other retards within there who have an equal vote to what I have. Despite the fact I have
if we did
more knowledge.
If we did a co-op with a 10th share, everybody had a 10th, right? So everyone was equal. It's no different than having a corporation where everyone has a 10th of a share. It's the same thing. And what leftists always do is they get on these semantical arguments, and they never get on arguments based on principle, which is where they get people, because people don't understand the fundamental metaphysical principles behind many of these things. When a city is incorporated, that means that a town is incorporated, right? That means that it has has enough people there that now it's recognized as some sort of sovereign entity, and so they're incorporated. It's that goes, all this goes way back to like Latin and Greek and all that, and a corpus, a body, what that means. So any organization that comes about where you have a group of people together making rules, you've created a corporation. And of course they like syndicates as well, and the syndicate is just a corporation, folks. So
but this goes back to my point though. It's like, yeah, as an idea, yeah, it sounds nice, but here's the issue though, is that technically if you want to enforce this across every single private company out there, you are by default violating private property rights, which is something that so many communists will try and deny. And I even remember during the days when I was arguing with a communist, he tried using a personal property argument. And I'm just like, there's no such thing as personal property. There is private property and there is public property. There is no in between. Personal property is just private property, and you're trying to use that term to get around the fact that you are ultimately against private property. Because they're like, oh, but personal property is like your toothbrush. And I'm like, oh, really? What about a car then? Is that personal property or private property?
Right.
And I'll say personal. I was like, okay then, but does it become private if I want to use it as a taxi to make some money?
Well, they don't even know how to get into. They don't understand that value is not necessarily subjective. It can be, right? But things are valued because of the masses decide. The majority of people decide this thing has value, it has worth. And that's the market dictates its value.
Exactly.
And they trying to eliminate markets create artificial values, which then has all these problems. And even during the Soviet Union, in order for them to value their grain, their products, whatever it might be, they had to look at the United States and in Western Europe to have a value, to decide a value for the prices of their goods. So there's just so many issues that these people have in their thinking, and there's I don't know. There's just so many fallacies and what they believe, and they don't really understand what they believe. It's all emotionally based, right? So I'm gonna play some more of this, Kiz, and if you're available, dude, maybe we'll hang out for another 20 minutes or so. But I really can't.
I'm good. I'm good, pretty much. Yeah, I'm good to go. Like the only thing I was going to ask as well is that, I mean, when I hear these types of people talk about working co-ops, I mean, I forget who it was who argued this against Forsch. I think it might have been Stefan when they had that argument like 2-3 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He straight up says, well, based on your logic, then why your entire subscribers should technically own you and your entire channel then, by your logic then. And he's like, no, because I do basically all the work. And I'm just like, no, based on your own logic, this is the reality of it.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is you know, you got a tanky pretending, or a guy pretending to be a tanky who lives in Beverly Hills, who's a capitalist because let's face it, he makes money off the internet.
Well,
I don't
well,
think
well, well.
I don't think it's necessarily a grift. I think he
I
believes.
would argue it's a great. I'd argue if you claim to be a communist and are making money, you are a grifter by definition.
Well, that
If
is
you are a
true.
true devout communist, you live purely off the means of the land and have absolutely nothing.
That is true, you know, because I used to use that argument a lot when I used to do a lot of online like forum chatting and stuff, and I would just tell them, I'm like, why do you live here in the U.S. then, or in Canada? Because a lot of people I talk with were in Canada. I'd be like, why do you live in these free market nations then? You know,
Well,
you're a hypocrite according to your own standards. So I
oh
don't.
yeah,
There's no
oh yeah.
reason why you're going to convince me because you don't even live by your own standards. But they don't typically know how to answer that, by the way. Usually doesn't get good responses.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like this is my point though. They talk about the so-called socialist countries of Denmark and Sweden and all that. I'm like, no, those countries are actually among the most capitalist countries in the world. I mean, hell, the Danish freaking prime minister or president, the leader of the country terms they use, he straight up came out and told Bernie Sanders to shut up. We are not a socialist country back in 2015. I'm sorry. If the leader of a country tells you straight up we are not what Bernie Sanders says they are, then you should listen to that person. And also another thing which somebody did point out to these leftists is that what you want to copy these countries. So what you're saying is you want these countries to be near white ethno states then.
Right.
I mean, there's very little diversity in Denmark.
Well, Gavin pulled that. You remember when Gavin
I
had?
think it was Gavin, yeah.
Yeah. He had that leftist girl on, and he said, "So you want a white ethno state?" She didn't know what to say. But yeah, there's these fantastical realities, and frankly, I mean, if Illinois or California wants to be a commie state, I'm fine with that. Actually, the problem is that they're not fine with that. They need to expand it and put it on everyone else, which is why the movement is inherently authoritarian and will always bring about an authoritarian strongman. It is in the very nature of it. In fact, it's in Marx's own writings that's what he intended. He liked the idea. He thought everyone should be listening to him. He thought, you know, his stuff didn't stink, and he didn't understand why he didn't get more notoriety. And the reality is that he was a complete loser. He really was. He was letting his wife and children starve while he was going out and running around and getting drunk on the little bit of money he had. You know,
well, he was just living off the back of a wealthy factory owner. So in reality, he was living off the back of filthy imperialism.
There you go. So yet another hypocrite.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we need my Mayor of Veritas, and it's why we need Kizarism, because all these Marxists will get their communist utopia, and they're going to realize just how wrong they were. Because if you take the literal definition of communism as a classless, stateless, moneyless society, well, that's just the caveman era.
Well, there's never a classless society in any communist society. You know.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying if you take their definition
right
literally.
Mean Park talked about that on Tim's show the other week, that there are numerous classes and you can only go down.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's be frank here. The USSR was quite literally just neo-feudalism.
It always is. I told somebody this years ago. I worked with this guy, and he was a big lefty. Now it was interesting because you know, I worked at the sheriff's department. I was in the jail. Most of the people there were more right leaning, but this guy worked in classification, and he's gay, and he might have been the only hardcore leftist there, right, that worked for the organization. And I had this conversation with him, and it'd be like, you know, and he's like, "Oh, well, you know, I'm a political science major," and I'm like, you know, I don't care. Like, just because you learn something in political science doesn't mean that it's correct. You know, because you're sitting here espousing these ideas about socialism and how great it would be, and not just that, but centralization. Like, a lot of people would make the argument, I don't understand why in Pennsylvania you don't have to wear a helmet, but here in Maryland you do. Because they're separate entities. They're different states. They're different sovereign nations. But people want to get rid of that. They want to whittle that away. They're dumb. I think you have to be really naive, or you have to have a lot of hubris to think that that's a good idea to centralize everything. I don't know a centralized system that doesn't fail repeatedly over and over again, because they're not centralized systems aren't meant to last. They're not strong. They're not built to be hit by multiple angles or things. They can't correct course quick enough.
Well, exactly, because quite frankly, though, if you ask all these central planners, if you ask all of them, they're all basically quote unquote intellectuals, but they're not like engineers. Because the difference is, if you ask an engineer to build a centralized system, they could very well easily do it because they take into account many of these aspects. Like, for instance, making sure that all their supply chains are not going to get screwed over, being attacked from multiple angles, etc., etc. They have to consider that all those things as they go along, which is why when it comes to the subject of experts, which I know your co-host Tank despises the term expert, but when it comes to experts, I trust engineers the most compared to every other group out there. And the reason for that is, if an engineer screws up, guess what? Do you know what happens?
He gets fired and potentially prosecuted, depending on how bad it is. If people die.
Oh yeah. Like, he'll get fired, get prosecuted, and if he gets prosecuted, all his qualifications get stripped from him, and he's not, or her, because we're not sexist here at all -1. We are not sexist. They get all their qualifications stripped, and they're not allowed to work in the industry. You know what I mean, okay? You got to remember. We got to piece all sides here. It's 2021, quote unquote. Not really. They get stripped, and they are not allowed to work in that industry ever again. Now, could you imagine if we had that level of scrutiny and ruthlessness when it came to politics or banking?
Well, you know why we don't? Because we come from the line of divine rights, and people have forgotten. Like, people have forgotten what we created in the United States. There are very few people that even understand what the system is supposed to be, because we have 5-6 generations of people that have been born into what the system is, and the Leviathan that it's become, and all-encompassing monster that it is now. Like this thing where basically Joe Biden went and said that the South never came to the Capitol building in the Civil War. Yeah, because the South didn't care. They weren't trying to destroy the United States. They just wanted to separate, dude. So the comparison's just not appropriate. But anyways, he's talking about conservative folks, though, liberty-minded folks, right-leaning folks, whatever they are. He's saying these are the enemies. This is the new Civil War. Like, when you have the president saying that, that's something that people need to take note of, but they won't. There are so many people that still talk, they deny the idea that we're entering a civil war, that we've been in a cold civil war. There's a lot. I mean, one of the biggest things I want to do here more than anything is, random person tunes in, is just be like, hey, wake the hell up before you get blindsided, because things are going to be really bad when you're not prepared.
Well, I always find the best people to wake people up is like, I'm sure you've seen the meme where somebody's driving, they're heading towards a cliff, and the person in the passenger is telling them they're driving off to a cliff. Yeah, instead of trying to take control, what you should do is have a giant weight on them, lump it on the person's right foot, and jump out of the car. That's what you should do. Because that's the best way to prove the thing. People say, oh, accelerationism is a bad thing. No, it is not. Because quite often you need to accelerate a problem to demonstrate the problem itself. So, for instance, if you're at work and there's a problem, you try going through the normal channels and nothing gets done. If you kick off a right stink and throw people under a bus, then it takes notice and that thing gets sorted, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, let me play this video, man. There's only 3 little segments in here I want to play, and then there's another one from today. And they're at the very beginning. There's like 2 or 3 segments I want to play, but it shouldn't take but more than maybe 10 minutes here. But I should definitely probably get off at 4:30. If you guys are just jumping in, I see Josh said in the comments there, Josh, I don't know if you were here at the beginning. Just not going to be able to do a full stream today, but should be back Tuesday with Christian Watson, which originally we were scheduled for today, but he told me he wasn't going to be able to make it several days ago. So, but Joshua said, socialists, communists, and libertarians are all attempting to build utopia and not grounded in reality. Exactly. That's the first step, is understanding there is no utopia. There is no perfect system. And I think the other part of it is if you want to be a free person, you have to understand that that's hard. You have to fight for it. You have to be very active. And very few people want to be free people, actually. I think most people want to be slaves. You know, we talked about this on Dragons of Discord with Yiz on Monday. And, I mentioned Nietzsche's master-slave morality. But Nietzsche didn't talk about the person that wanted to be free. He was talking about those who were masters of themselves and noble-minded, and the rest of the people who just wanted to be taken care of. I mean, it's an easy bet, and most people will hedge their bets if they can. It's an easy bet to say, hey, I'll be a slave if you provide me everything that I need. In fact, women do this often in marriages, in relationships.
But this is the point. That this goes back to my point about my highly unpopular opinion of human rights should not be universal, but subscription models. Because if you make it very clear to people that if you hold a certain values, this is what you're going to get, and you make them victims or guinea pigs of the experiment, you end up creating a group, you end up making those people vehemently against their original position. Like, there's a reason why almost everyone in Eastern Europe, from like Poland and Romania, Bulgaria, etc., is vehemently anti-communist because they lived under it for 40 odd years. I mean, hell, I speak with Polish co-workers a lot, and they're shocked at how anti-communist I am, despite living in England. Like, they're shocked at how anti-communist I am. They're like, dude, you're worse than like almost hate than half our politicians are. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because I know the truth.
Well, you see what's creeping in. Josh also said Plato talked about the slave mindset in the Republic. Yeah, so did Aristotle, and it was I like Aristotle's remarks on this in his book on politics, because Aristotle talks about the slave mindset, and he says anyone that's conquered is a slave. Like, that was what made sense to them back in the day, right? If I could conquer you, obviously you're an inferior person, and therefore you get to be my slave. But he talked about how some people didn't know that they were supposed to be slaves, that they were slaves, and you'll find some slaves that think that they're free.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the I forget what the term's called, but have you ever heard of the prisoner with the key? I know as the prisoner with the key.
No, I don't know if I'm
aware of that. Analogy is there is a prisoner who's in his cell, just sitting in a cell with his hands tied together. He has the key that could let him be free, but he doesn't use it. And this is the analogy that most people have. They have the ability to be free. I might be butchering the term, but basically they have the means to make themselves free, but they choose not to.
Yeah, I'm seeing Prisoners Key as some organization. I don't know. I've never heard of that before, Kizza, but I mean, I get what you're saying.
It's the analogy of like people don't want to be free, and this is where like it reminds me of a speech, a talking point that the British historian David Starkey made, that people don't like being free, and I'm just like, yeah, it's true. People don't like being free. It's like this is why I don't think freedom. This is why freedom cannot be given. It has to be earned.
Yes.
If you look at the people who earned their freedom, they fucking treasure it and own it, and are vehemently oppose anything to go against it. Whereas those who don't will happily give it away, to the point where basically they'll end up locking themselves in golden chains.
Well, all things have to be earned. I mean, look, you can be given things, but if you really want to properly honor and respect something in life, earn it.
Exactly.
Earn it. Take the hard road. Anything that is easy in life is not well respected, is it?
No. I mean, look at sex. If you can get it easy, you're not going to respect it, are you? I mean, there's the old expression that sex was hard to find, but love was easy to find. Now it's the other way around. Love is hard to find, but sex is easy to find.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And
now, is it not slut shaming anyone? Not slut shaming anyone.
Well, it's just as a man whore, once upon a time. I mean, And I would definitely say I more or less was a sex addict. So
You
I
filthy
kind of
whore.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. But
But no, I mean you're right about that. And that was one of the things that for me eventually, like sex was easy to get, but it wasn't good or fun, or the minute it was over with, I was empty. And so, I was chasing the dragon, if you would, kind of like, heroin addicts or opium, that kind of
oh yeah,
thing.
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, this is why. I mean, this is kind of why, like, this is ironically the whole thing about like, people speak about drug addiction. It's like a lot of people get addicted to drugs. A part of it, especially when you're young, it's just to be rebellious. But when it's considered not rebellious or not cool, they stop doing it.
Right, right.
Like I remember all like the chavvy types, you know, who used to smoke weed at school. But then when they heard about all the nerds freaking smoking weed, they freaking hated it.
Yeah, it's
I know
interesting
that
the
sounds.
way people are very tribal, man. Hey,
Oh
Matt.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, welcome, Matt. But this goes back to my point, and I will say to Josh's point. As a diesel mechanic, I was responsible for my work. I had to sign off on work if completed. If I said I fixed the brakes and didn't, I would be legally liable. Yes, that is very true. You are legally liable for anything you sign off on. That's why
Now,
the engineering world is so brutal when it comes to standards. I mean, hell, like if you hear about any lawsuits from, like for instance, any like plane that crashes, literally just look at the lawsuit straight after. Every single person who worked on the thing is being dragged straight to court to explain themselves.
Matt, I was gonna say who's Lambda? I don't know that. Them.
Okay, I'm not sure who. Wait. Is that the another variant that's causing trouble in Canada?
We said watching Lambda's live stream. Yeah, yeah, but I don't didn't quite get what he was referring to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But yeah, it's just it's just that thing just does my head in. It's just like, like there's a reason why we have standards.
I forgot
Like,
I could do this with the
yeah,
chat.
yeah,
I should
yeah. I
start
mean,
doing it more
oh,
often.
so wait, Josh, is that proving to my point regarding the sex and love? Because if so,
Okay.
then I guess I should convert instead of being a filthy, blasphemous, militant atheist, as I've been told. But I mean, how, like for those who are Christian, you'd love my changes to marriage laws that I would be implementing.
Matt said it's Lambda Bible Studies.
Right,
I know
okay,
recently I've been watching a lot of Without Spot and Blemish. He's been going on this whole tear on the King James Bible and authoritarianism and whatever else. Although some of the points he makes I don't agree with historically, but I see this with a
yeah,
lot of Protestants where they get their historicity screwed up because they haven't delved into it enough. And trust me, I'm not perfect on it either, but I definitely read a lot of stuff from the early church and
yeah,
about the historical period. So
yeah, yeah. I
um,
mean, I mean, not just that. I mean, hell, like I remember when I did like read a lot of the King James Bible back in the day, and I could quote it like relentlessly. But that was like many years ago. But what was quite funny is that like how like when you read like the holy books and you end up realizing how much like how certain people end up emulating certain things without even realizing it. But I mean, but on the subject, let's head back towards Cuba. I mean, I'm highly skeptical on what's going on with Cuba at the moment, personally.
well,
I,
yeah, I mean,
I don't personally buy it that they want to become a proper like free a quote unquote classical liberal like free markets nation. I do not buy that for a second. I think I think like a lot of countries in Central and South America, they just want to flip. They're just going to end up flip flopping between quote unquote fascism and socialism because that's happened a lot in South America.
right. They never go back to free markets. I mean, what
Well, I mean,
nation in South America has a full free market system?
they did up until very recently. Chile, which was the most economically free country in all of the Americas, they were
Okay.
ranked 12th overall.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I had which was the case, but I think they switched to a socialist government, and a lot of people packed up and left Chile to another country. I forget which one
Yeah,
it
because
was.
I know Argentina's relatively free, but they also have a lot of authoritarianism.
I think Argentina might have recently switched because of recent elections. But that's the thing with South America, is there's such a massive swing like between like fascism, well, a lot of them fascism and socialism, but it's largely due to the Latin blood. There's no like halfway point with with Latins, and there's no disrespect to them. They're very passionate people, and they're very like one way or the other way. There is no middle ground.
And that's another thing that gets ignored a lot by like if you talk to the socialists or the tankies, whatever, they're never going to talk about South America because they'll just it's corruption, it's corruption, it's corruption. Well, the corruption's because of the socialism, jackass. Like that's why it's corrupt. The same reason why we're corrupt, because of our socialism, the Federal Reserve and that kind of stuff. We're corrupt here in the United States because of the immense amount of socialist fascistic policies that we've had for 100 years and it continue. So, we could try free markets. That would be great. I would love to try free markets here in the US.
Me, like, I'm like, don't get me wrong. I'm on board with like, I'm about as Austrian as you could get. Maybe not to a big extent. The only slight difference I will have with the Austrians is that when it comes to the role of the government, I do agree with Milton Friedman's point about the government should be the referee. But as someone who's played sports, what a referee can do is really fuck over those who don't play by the rules.
Right.
So what's that? If you see a player does a very dirty foul, he could just blow the whistle and be like, right, you're off, mate. You're off, and screw over his team.
Well, let's see. Let's play this because there's 3 little segments here. They shouldn't be very long.
Yeah.
And we'll jump out here. Thanks for coming on, man. I mean, no,
it's fine. Like I said, I've been meaning to try and catch up. I've been so busy with work. I know you've been busy with your baby. I've been busy with my niece, and but yeah, don't worry. Come August, I'm gonna have like literally almost all of August. I'm free, so I could do a lot of streams then.
But the thing is that it's not like she's not been good, and it's not that hard. It really isn't very hard to take care of her. She's a really good baby.
Yeah.
But it's still involved. There's the thing with the dog the other day, and my wife and I have just had to create routines. Something unusual's happened. I haven't had little children in forever.
Yeah.
But like I'm up every day anymore. Not today because I drank too much last night, so I slept late today. But that's the first time I've also drank in, I don't know, a week or more. I don't really drink anymore. So, in any case, I've been getting up at like 7, 8 a.m. every morning, and that's not typically me. And I've been in bed by midnight-ish. So that's good, but it puts me on a normal schedule. But I mean, I could probably stream more and stuff. I wanted to leave it open though. But right now, I think what we're gonna do here, or all -1, is Tuesdays and Fridays, because I actually don't like streaming on Monday.
That's fair. I mean, it's Monday. Who likes Mondays?
Well, it's not just that, but the way the news cycle works, it kind of drops off over the weekend, but stuff does happen, and then Monday there's just so much stuff that comes out. Generally, I like to be able to come in on Tuesday. Now, this isn't a purely news show; it's obviously there's more cultural commentary, but.
I think also you're copying what Bill and Delaney do at Weekly Narrative Tuesdays and.
They do Saturday. Yeah.
But no, I can understand. Like me, like especially August, since I'm going to be free, I'm gonna definitely try and get more on the stream because I know Years, who obviously I co-host for, she wants to do a special one-on-one because it was kind of our little one-on-ones that kind of helped build up her channel initially. And but yeah, to Joshua's point about the thing about marriages, trust me, you're gonna love my changes to marriage laws. Let's just say many people are not going to like my marriage change laws.
This thing that Joshua was saying here that I just put up about freedom without responsibility is both immoral and it becomes corrupt is 100% correct. And this is why I often say that we live in a libertine society, a hedonistic society. That's actually what the left is trying to do. So if you are, and here's the thing with that. If you are a slave, you don't have any responsibilities to anyone except for your master. So, and all your master wants, as far as the government goes, is your labor. So
And
people
I
are,
think
are willing to go to work and pay lots of money in taxes or whatever they're doing to get something in return to be taken care of, to have a libertine life. And this is why we're getting rid of all these you know, defund the police and all these we're changing bail reform laws, that kind of stuff, releasing people, releasing criminals, being a softer, kinder, gentler society, right? It's all about being a libertine in the end.
Yeah. As Demolition Man proved, as soon as you have one crazy psycho in a libertine society, you have no defense against it.
There you go.
And yes, but
Well, this is why I always feel weird in the position I'm in, because I really do hold a pacifist position, but I also know I'm like, man, when somebody touched my wife, you watch a crazy man all of a sudden, or watch someone, you know, feet go over top their head when they hit the floor.
Suplex City.
You know, I well, not suplex, but I got a pretty mean. I got some pretty mean throws, judo style throws. All I'm saying is, like, yeah, I know we need to be able to defend ourselves and fight. I would rather not. You're gonna have to put me in a really bad position. But if you're gonna go there, don't back don't back me into a corner. Don't put, you know, the rabid dog in the corner, because that's what I'll turn into. And I don't want to do that either, because I really do believe in my faith that I'm not supposed to be violent toward people. But there's something that ignites in a man on a primal level when you're threatening his family. I would hope, you know. So, anyways, let's play this thing and we'll get out of here.
And that the sanctions make it harder for Cuba to make COVID-19 vaccines and produce food.
The fact is, Cuba can trade with any country on the planet except Israel and the United States.
Fergus Hodgson is director at Econ Americas, a financial consultancy company. He says U.S. sanctions are not at the heart of this crisis.
So this begs the question, if these sanctions weren't in place, would the Cuban people be in a better situation than they are now?
Marginally so. It's hard to say. The sanctions were put in place by the U.S. government, actually first in 1958 and then ramped up in 1960 to restrain an abuse of power. Because in 58, they had a Batista, a dictator who was behaving aggressively, and the U.S. did not want to give more military arms to them. Then when the Castro regime came in, they were just nationalizing and confiscating private property. So would people be better off? Maybe. The point is that the goal is to not empower the regime. So the people might in the short run be slightly better off, but they would be stuck with this parasitic regime.
The Instagram post got nearly 100,000 likes, but the overwhelming number of comments tell a different story. A few Republican senators called it support for a communist regime. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki blamed Cuba's communist ideology for its economic failures.
Communism is a failed ideology, and we certainly believe that. It has failed the people of Cuba. They deserve freedom. They deserve a government that supports them. But I would note that the ideology of the government, which has failed, has led to a lack of access to economic opportunity, to medical supplies, to COVID vaccine.
Black Lives.
So that I don't know, like the COVID vaccine thing. This is also why I want to talk about Haiti, because there's the conspiracy theory going around, right, about these nations that didn't want the vax, and one of them was Madagascar. And the president of Madagascar, I believe, they were talking about they had an herbal remedy. He died, and then like a day later, they accepted the vax. So, and you know me, I love a conspiracy theory, whether it's true or not. So, it's interesting that she would bring that up or mention that.
Lives Matter is asking President Biden to end the economic sanctions. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Cuba is in its 5th day of civil unrest as thousands of people fight for freedom. But with internet shutdowns, it's hard to get information out of the island. NTD speaks with a Cuban American who's in contact with his family in Havana. He shares with us exclusive reports about what's happening on the island.
Cubans are making history.
Julio Oritz fled communist Cuba over 20 years ago.
He wrote this book called Escape from Cuba: In Search of the American Dream. Oritz is in regular contact via cell phone with his family members in Cuba. They live in Havana, the center of the unrest. The videos you see throughout this story show what's taken place in Cuba over the last couple of days. Oritz emphasized one point again and again. The uprising in Cuba is not because of a lack of vaccines or even lack of food. The Cuban people are fighting for freedom from communism.
This is absolutely not about COVID. Let's not change it. It's not about COVID. This is about freedom. This is about change of government. This is about human rights.
He says some of his family members have participated in the demonstrations, while others have stayed locked inside to stay safe. His family told him that everything in Havana is shut down and no one is going to school or work. Protesters aren't able to go home, otherwise they risk arrest.
People are not going home. People are not going anywhere. The fact that that people are out on the streets and you going home, that will create a massive problem for everybody, because that would allow them to go and check on your house and go get you and put you to jail right away.
His family told him that people are being shot and tortured in the streets. There's only one confirmed death, but because the Cuban regime is not transparent, there's no way of knowing the true number. Or it says that at the Cuban president's direction, protesters are being denied hospital treatment.
So if you get to the hospital and you are shot or you are hurt, and there is a witness that you were against the communism or complaining about communism or claiming your rights of freedom or asking for a change in Cuba, you are not going to be taken care of.
He notes that because the Cuban people don't have firearms, they can't defend themselves.
People in Cuba have no guns. We have no guns. We have no arms or anything like that. And meanwhile, they're being beaten to death.
Or it says the Cuban people and Cuban Americans are calling on the United States for help. That's why, he says, Cuban protesters have been seen holding the American flag. But Oritz says so far, Cubans are disappointed in the Biden administration's response.
And at this time, Biden could make history. This is the best time for Cuba.
He's right about that. Biden could make himself quite popular, I think, if he did something like that, where he would give aid or help or start having negotiations with the Cuban government and being like, well, we'll take some of your people as we've done in the past. I know we got a lot of criminals with that, but still.
Well, yeah, Scarface proved that.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the whole point of Scarface, though. That did happen. They did send us criminals. But of course, a lot of people escaped on their own as well. But yeah, that would be a great thing for Biden to do. I would actually praise him, but they're not. They won't. And again, they've made it clear, no, don't come to the U.S. Well, if they're actually refugees fleeing from communism, I'm pretty sure we have always taken them in as political asylees, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, my country UK has had a huge history of taking in refugees. I mean, even times when nobody talks about it.
Well, right, but then so the UK and most of Western Europe has taken in all these Middle Eastern and African refugees for no reason, really.
Oh yeah. I mean,
they're not really refugees; they're just economic.
Well, I mean, the refugee crisis. I mean, less said about that, but I mean that's like 5 years. I mean, that's been going on for 5 years, and even then, there's still no answers.
Right.
But I mean, that's basically all Merkel's fault. She gave out the invitation, and guess what? This is what happened. Despite multiple people warning this would happen, and they try to claim no, we're not, and guess what? They were always talking wrong. But this is my point, though. It's the fact that, like, I mean, I'm not surprised why Biden's done this. I mean, it would be more interesting to see how would Trump deal with this. Would he be okay with accepting refugees, knowing full well there's huge pushback about accepting any form of refugees because lots of American citizens are screwed over because of recent decisions, and they want help because they're tax-paying citizens. They should, by default, gain help. They pay for they pay their taxes. They should get something out of it in terms of the civilization. I mean, isn't that what taxes are for? But at the same time, I mean, this issue with Cuba, I mean, my mentality is, I mean, if I was smart and I was running the United States, I'd be like, okay, then how about fair trade then? We'll take in all the anti-communist Cubans, and you take into account all the pro-communist Americans. How's that sound?
Right.
I mean, because both sides get what they want. The anti-communist Cubans get away from communism, and the anti-American Americans get their communism.
Yeah, except for the goal is to have this worldwide system. So at least in their mind.
Well, technically, it already exists. It's called the UN Global Migration Pact.
Right. Well, there you go.
Well, and I still despise to the day Theresa May signed us up to it, despite a petition straight up saying no to it.
This is an interesting point Joshua just made in the chat about America no longer has the moral high ground. Russia appears to have fewer restrictions on its people and businesses than we do. Hell, we have political prisoners. 100%. That's why the place to go right now is Russia. That's the big mistake Julian Assange made, is he didn't go to Russia. But of course, we all know that why does his name escape me all of a sudden?
Edward Snowden.
Snowden, thank you. We all know Snowden's there, and he's doing fine. And Russia, guys, is not the big bad enemy. I swear, like they're potentially
they have their own agenda.
Yeah, they're potentially bad guys, but they're not really. We need to get over that. China's definitely a threat, though. China is a huge threat.
I mean, the thing is, right. Let's be frank here, right? If you're wanted by the American government, let's be frank here. Where else are you going to? Let's be frank here. Russia's like the first place you go because you know full well Russia will generally, for the most part, will not give you up because of the whole history and tensions between Russia and the United States. I mean, that's what I would that's where I would go if I had to flee the United Kingdom and become a political refugee. I'd go straight to Russia, not because I like Russia, because I know full well because of the tensions between them that I'd be quote unquote safe. Not because
Russia has a they're developing a middle class right now. They have a lot of internal issues. And the bad stuff that Russia does that we look at as Americans, you have to understand what's going on in those regions of the world. Like when they're fighting and taking land from the Ukraine or other places, that's a traditional, long historically traditional Russian thing where they like to maintain big, wide borders.
Well, the whole thing with Ukraine, I mean, technically that's the fault of the European Union. Because ultimately the European Union was trying to stir trouble in Ukraine. The official government of Ukraine had to flee because they were going to be attacked by the freaking, protesters and basically, an insurrectionist. So they had to flee. And then ultimately Putin took full advantage of the whole thing and, got hold of Crimea. And ultimately that led them to being kicked out of the G8, which is why we have the G7 and they got sanctioned. Obama sanctioned them badly, which did screw them over economically speaking. But it's like, well, hold on. The EU created the situation, but you're punishing Russia for it. It's like, come on now. Let's be consistent here, all right?
Right. Well, now we have this whole pipeline thing and all that.
Whatever. The pipeline stuff that goes all the way back to the freaking 80s.
I know, dude. I know.
It's like Jesus Christ. Do people?
I'm gonna play some more. This was from today about Haiti and all that real quick, and then I'm gonna have to get out of here for certain. Like I said, didn't intend to stream this long today, but hey, it worked out. Glad you came on, Kiz. Maybe if you're free next Friday, I'll just have you on again because we always have good conversations. So
I'm on afternoon shift, so I'll be finishing around 9ish. So I'm pretty certain I'll be too late.
That's Greenwich Mean Time 9.
Yeah. Well,
you're 5 hours ahead right now, right?
Well, it's 9:33 here, so technically we're in summertime.
Okay, it's 4:30. Yeah, here. So yeah.
So that might be a bit of an issue.
Okay, well, if not, man, whatever. I can run a show by myself. I've been doing it for a long time now, for a year now.
I like to, but like I said, my work gets in the way. But like I said, come August, apart from like a few days where I'm up north meeting up some other content creators, I'm going to be free and be able to do lots of streaming.
Cool. All right, well, let's play this segment real quick. Wait, hold on. I have to hit add to stream. There we go.
Yeah.
And this isn't broken up like the other one. because it's
Oh,
just
wait, does have sections? Yeah,
it was just released today, so they haven't like cut it yet.
Yeah.
But,
Well, it's not cut, but just have the pointers.
Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Americans on both sides of the aisle are asking, how can the U.S. help Cuba? What are the options? And what message does one Cuban-American rapper have for the world? New information on the suspects who were allegedly involved in the assassination of Haiti's president.
Oh, it's getting spicy there.
Biden to rapper Pitbull, people are thinking of ways to help the Cubans. Biden says they're considering a number of options. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
Let me start off by...
President Biden said Thursday he's considering how the U.S. can help people in Cuba in a way that won't be taken advantage of by Cuba's communist regime. He said he'd also give vaccines, but only if an international group administered them. As for...
Here's the thing. I'm not about empire or invading other countries, but seriously, when the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that happened, they had the backing of Russia. Who's backing Cuba now? Why can't we just, kind of be like, hey, we'll hook you up with some stuff if you stop doing this. And if you keep doing this, maybe we'll send some troops down there. Again, I'm not into that idea. I'm just saying, we've done it before. Why wouldn't we do it now?
Yeah, well, I think I think you might have still some ties with Russia, because I know full well Putin didn't say anything negative when Castro died. So maybe they still have some history together. Maybe they are somewhat aligned, but and you don't end up like causing more issues than need to be posed. But at the same time, I mean, for me personally, maybe because I'm a cynical man here, me personally, I'm just like, nah, not my problem.
Oh yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, but at the same time, it is a neighbor of ours. In fact, we had great relations with Cuba forever until Castro. It was practically, part of America, part of North America, in the United States, that is. So, and there is a long-standing, I actually found this the other day because I went through a bunch of my old files, hard drives. I went through a bunch of them, but there is old documents from folks and their occultic beliefs and these people who want, the New World Order and whatever else, about uniting North America, Mexico, Canada, and America. And we saw this in the early 2000s. Lou Dobbs covered it with the Amero and the NAFTA superhighway and all that stuff. And that was a serious plan. They still want to do it. But you can go back. You can go all the way back to, what is it? I think the early 1900s, and there is an invocation of the Order of the Rose and Cross. That is the Rosicrucians. They talk about that specifically, and I have a PDF copy of this book. So these things are things that have been out there in the sphere of the world, right? Like in the end, like North America, they would want to unite. Maybe South America. I think they care less about South America because it doesn't have nearly as much infrastructure.
Well, I mean,
much like.
Well, I mean, I will say this. Sorry to interrupt, Bill. If there was a proper sort of federal, if South America was a proper federal state, and they got their shit together, that would be one hell of a player in terms of international politics. Because people seem to forget Venezuela has more oil reserves than Saudi Arabia does. Chile's the number one spot for lithium reserves. They're like, just in the resource war, my lord, they can happily shaft Asia, Africa, and Europe and North America.
But their corruption, their socialism, and largely actually, the church has kept them down for centuries. And
the Catholic Church. Oh yeah, for sure. But it's like, I do think there is some, because I have spoken to a few people from South America, and there is some appetite within people within those countries for them just to basically kind of strip away this old dogma of thinking and sort of think, okay, sort of copy to what the English promoted and stuff like that. But the issue is that, what's like with people, they become so tribal and so set in their ways that anything even slightly different to them, they'll just automatically reject without actually considering the position.
Right.
You know, I mean, because like for instance, Brazil, for instance, I mean, like I know obviously they love their football. You know, I mean, you know, football there. I mean, people talk about Catholicism in South America. No. Football is a bigger religion there
Well, there you
than
go.
Catholicism. Like they go crazy when their teams win, and they go absolutely crazy. They're even more crazy when their teams lose.
Right. Well, let's get back to this so I can get out of here.
Sure thing.
I know I was like, I'm going to only stream for an hour today, and we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. So,
or the internet blockage.
We're considering whether we have the technological ability to reinstate that access.
Florida's governor.
back to my point though about giving them stuff and whatever else too. Here's my thing: is that we do this all the time to African nations with warlords like Somalia, right? We do this all over the world where we give out foreign aid. And of course, the people at the top, they take that money. It doesn't ever get down to the citizens. So I'm sure there's stuff that we could do. And I'm sure there's charitable things that we can do. The problem is of course, getting that money in the hands of the people. From what I understand, a lot of Cuban descendants who live here in the United States send money back to their family at home through ATM debit type cards, stuff like that.
Oh
So-
yeah, that's always the way. I mean, that's
Right.
true with all immigrants. For like,
Right.
especially those from like South Asian countries, they're constantly sending money directly to their homelands.
Right, but the difference in Cuba is that money could be confiscated by the government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure about states like Pakistan, of course, but like, you have stuff like that, which is why, like, it's just natural because ultimately we have vastly more money, and let's be frank here, what $10 is worth in the United States, that's perhaps worth like $100 or more.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. All right.
Storing the internet is one of the most effective things the U.S. can do.
The one thing that communist regimes fear the most is the truth. And if we're able to help Cubans communicate with one another, also communicate to the outside world, that truth is going to matter.
And progressive Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also weighed in. She blamed U.S. sanctions for the current unrest.
The embargo, the U.S. embargo, is absurdly cruel. And like other U.S. policies, particularly other U.S. policies targeting Latin Americans and Latinos, the cruelty is the point.
Why do you have to Latinos? Why can't you just say Latino? Why do you have to say it in such a manner?
I'm surprised she doesn't say Latinx.
Right.
Because she is a progressive. After
It's
all, but,
particularly cruel to these people.
Yeah, honey. I mean, like, if you're gonna constantly blame the United States for all of its problems, like, I mean, what happened? What? Who are you gonna blame if the United States were to, I don't know, disappear?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. Every time I see her anymore, I cannot get the image of Dwayne the Rock Johnson out of my head because she looks like the female version of him.
No. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says. She just looks like a horse.
Well,
looks
yeah.
like
I mean, she looks like BoJack Horseman, of course, but but also, I mean, I don't know. I actually think she's until she shows her horse teeth, she's a relatively attractive lady, but
nah, she's her most possible.
she's just so annoyingly airheadish, though. Anyways,
No, I mean, hell, if you're going to give me a female politician in America who I gladly put over a table, give me Tulsi Gabbard any day of the week, even though she's almost old enough to be my mother.
I like Ilhan, and she's obviously has no moral scruples, so she'd probably be a fun time.
Yeah.
You
But then
lose your soul during it, but
well, she'll turn into a bunny boy then. That's the last thing you want.
yeah. I mean, I really do think Ilhan's super pretty, but that's just me,
Well, you're crazy.
I like dark skinned women, so I don't know why I married white bread, but I did.
She ain't dark skinned. She's black. She's freaking Somalian at the end of the day.
I know she's black, Kizza, but she's not. She's obviously a mixture of other things as well. She wouldn't have her nose structure and her face structure is not a typical African look.
So what you're saying is that she's a descendant of a filthy imperialist slave owner.
I don't know. She might have some Arab blood in her or something of that sort.
Wouldn't surprise me considering the religious ideology of that.
Right.
But let's continue.
Right. But well, either way, I just like, I like Latin women and like
Proper
Indian women.
Latin
I like women with dark hair and dark skin generally. I like
Proper
swarthy
Latin
women. So, and I married like a super white basic woman. So
Were you about to call your wife a basic bitch?
I mean, basically, but she knows that. She know. I mean, my
No,
daughter.
no, Bill. No,
She
it's
she
fine.
knows.
It's fine.
My
It's
wife's
fine,
pretty
Bill.
basic.
No, it's fine. It's fine, Bill. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. What you really say is you did the honorable Aryan thing.
There you
Even though
go.
Aryans are not white.
Yes. Well, yeah. If I did the honorable Aryan thing, I would have married a Pakistani girl or something.
Yeah, an Indian / Iranian, but it makes me laugh how in the United States the concept of white seems to change depending on which group you're talking about.
The only Pakistani girl I ever dated was a nut job. I don't know. I liked her, but man, she's a pretty girl, but she was cray hardcore.
I blame her mother.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna hit play.
Cuban American rapper Pitbull says it's about freedom and human rights. He asked the world to step up.
All world allies get together to help. Global businesses get together to help. We need to get creative. We need to figure out solutions while they're losing their lives over there literally for something that we wake up every day and appreciate, which is freedom.
His message to Cubans,
Well, I did not
you're
know
the ones
Pitbull was
inspiring
Cuban.
the world, showing what it really means to fight for freedom. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The Pentagon says the suspects who were allegedly involved in the assassination of Haiti's president were once trained by the U.S. military. And we bring you an eyewitness account of someone who says that she heard gunshots at midnight when she was sleeping.
Okay. Well, I don't need to keep playing this, but yes, trained by the U.S. military. This is typical. Obviously, if you guys don't know that we train mercenaries all over the world all the time, you do now. We did this in Afghanistan, and the Mujahideen came about, and then the Taliban came about, right?
Yeah. It's almost like training fucking rebellion forces never comes back to bite you in the ass.
Right.
What was it that a certain wise man said about mercenaries?
Oh, I don't know. You tell me.
Nobody pays them. They're always paid, and if they feel that someone owes them, they take it.
Yeah, I mean that's somewhat true. I know guys that are mercs, and they're nice guys, but not all of them necessarily are. They definitely have a bad reputation. Your countrymen have a lot of the SAS guys and the commandos. They went on to be mercenaries.
Oh, I know, because it was much more economically worthwhile to be a mercenary.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I mean, when they say mercenaries are nice, I'm like, yeah, they're as nice as the mafia are nice. They're nice when they want to talk business, but they're not so nice when they feel when you owe them something.
Yeah, no doubt. In any case, because I'm gonna just leave it there because I went almost 2 hours, even though I said in the beginning I'm only gonna go 1 hour. But there was more stuff to watch. But hey, Kizza came on, guys, and therefore we had conversation. But I should be back Tuesday at 3 p.m. with Christian Watson. If you guys don't know him, you can just do a little search in the YouTubes. He's got a good channel. He talks about the stuff that he likes to talk about. He's been talking about CRT and those things a lot. Very smart guy. I will have him on. I'm going to try and work to see if I can get Aiden back on with him. I think they would have a good conversation. The less talking I have to do, the better it is for me.
well, I mean, me personally, I love to be on with Aiden Paladin because I love to see her views about how I love to see if she would love to do some statistical analysis on my policies and how they affect and what the statistical outcomes created from it would be.
Well, I'll have to see because I don't know. I mean, I haven't talked to Aiden since last Friday when she was on the show, but we did talk for probably an hour and a half after I got off. In fact, I was needing to do something when we started to talk, and that's the way it went.
Well, yeah, I mean, the last time I remember speaking about Aiden's when she was chatting, she was on with Years of Dragons of Discord, and I posted a super chat saying, "Do you think that when the furlough scheme came about and I was getting paid $2,500 a month, do you think I wanted that shit to end? No, I wanted that stuff to go on as long as possible because I was going to milk it."
Yeah. Well, even if I don't get Aiden either way, I'll at least have Christian, and I'll probably do a little interview with him about his background. I mean, he's a pretty young guy. He's 21, but quite brilliant.
Makes me seem like a boomer.
Yeah. But very highly intelligent, quite brilliant. And we'll talk about some of these issues some more because I'm interested in his perspective. And I want to kind of get into some, religious talk with him as well, I think. He asked me yesterday, he's like, so what are the topics going to be? And I'm like, well, that's a hard one, buddy, because I usually pull them up about the morning of the show and figure out what I'm going to do, or the night before. It's not like I'm planning so far out because I'm trying to keep up with the news cycle, right? So unless I really have something I want to talk about, I guess I'll have a few days to figure it out. But I will be back Tuesday at 3 p.m. and then on Friday at 3 p.m. And that will be the normal time that I'll be on here. If you guys didn't know, you didn't realize, because I didn't shill it today, I do have an Entropy running. You can donate over there if you want. DLive is also running because I stopped running DLive because OBS was screwing up with it running in the background. I don't have to worry about any of that running through StreamYards because, their servers do it. So good for me. In any case, that's all I have for the day, though, guys. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you all coming here, giving me that like. If you're new, please do that. Give me a like, share, subscribe, the thing. And I've actually I've been gaining a bunch of subs, even though I haven't been making a lot of content lately. So that's been interesting.
It must be my good bit of shilling.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm a good shiller.
Let's see. Joshua just said something here. I'm just constantly amazed by people who don't understand how non-European cultures. Yeah. Okay. You guys are sitting there talking with each other.
Yeah. It's just, like I said, the whole thing about the Aryan thing. I just like mocking Nazis and certain Whig Nats about that. White when they're not white. I don't care if you're from Iran or freaking India. You are not white.
Right.
Okay.
The whole Aryan thing, that's something I want to talk about eventually on here, is the whole the occult side of Nazism. I want to get into. I was planning on it on the first stream I did after we had the baby, but for some reason it got sorted down. I talked too long, whatever it was. But I had a video on migration. There's a really good YouTuber called Mossman, I think Mossaman or something like that, who does all this stuff on migration patterns, ancient migration patterns, and ethnic groups and breeding and all. So I was going to play some of his stuff. And then there's Robert Seffer, who is very much.
Yes, I know
Yes,
yes. I know all about Robert Seffer. Yeah, from
he's all about the Nazi occultism. So
well. I mean, because there's a Telegram chat I'm in, which is like big in terms of like genetic research.
Okay.
And within it, they posted the link, which I thought was very funny and very interesting, which I love trolling, quote unquote, African nationalists and black nationalists with.
Well, in any case, he has his whole shtick is this alternative anthropology that the Nazis were looking at back in the day. And it's not like all of it is actually wrong or what he's showing is wrong, but he's always bringing it back to the idea of the Aryan race from Atlantis. And there's no proof that exists. Those ideas come from H.P. Blavatsky, by the way, folks, if you don't know that, and the secret teaching of all ages, those occult things. But again, that's a whole other topic to get into. You guys, I'm sure if you watch me regularly, you know that I've studied the occult. I've got all kinds of occult books. I don't focus on it a lot here, but it is tied into the whole idea of the New World Order and all of those things, the global government. I was just going to say that technically speaking, humanity for the last 5,000-6,000 years have technically all supported a one world government. It's just they never actually thought about it completely. Well, the occult side of it is actually to bring about that and kind of there's stuff where America was seen as the new Atlantis, of course. That's from Sir Francis Bacon, and of course, what's his name? Manly P. Hall wrote about this as well. Manly P. Hall wasn't a Freemason, but he was an occultist, and later on was given honorary degrees in Freemasonry, 33rd degree Mason, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I know that that's quite a big thing in the UK, in England. So, because someone actually tried asking if I was in the group, and I was like, no freaking way.
Well, most people that are in the Blue Lodge, the first 3 degree, or if they're in the Scottish Rite, even if they go up in the higher degrees, they don't know what it's about. They're just doing these rituals, and it's a fraternity. But if you do know, they'll bring you in. So this is why I had Michael Witkoff on a little bit ago. I've actually been chatting with Michael a little bit here on the side the last couple of days. Sent him a video. But in any case, maybe I'll see if I can get Michael on this show sometime in the future, because he's always a good time as well.
Oh yeah. But the fact that, just to bring back to Robert here, there's one particular fact through him that this Telegram chat I'm in. Actually, I love dumping on Black nationalists or African nationalists. Is the fact that Tutankhamun, one of the most famous pharaohs in Egyptian history, was
white.
And no, not just white, 100% Western European.
Yeah.
And do you know what's even funnier than that, Bill?
He had red hair, didn't he?
No, not that.
Oh.
I, as
what?
an Englishman, am more genetically related to Tutankhamun than any person in Egypt is.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. That's when people get on about race and ethnicity and all that stuff. I'm like, it matters, but it has changed so much throughout the course of history that it's going to change again. It's not really my thing. For me, it's liberty and freedom, right? And
Yeah. I just find it funny when we speak about races. I'm like, okay, then are you regarded them from like Celts, Germanics, Scandinavians, Romans, or whatever was before Romans, and Slavics, and then you have all the various ones from Africa, and then you have the ones from like what the natives are from, and the Amazonians, etc. Like, are you talking about that type of races?
Well, and then there's divisions within each of those groups too, right? So
Yeah, because like, I mean, I've had this argument before where a certain group who shall not be named because Susan will be listening. I'd argue they're not a race by definition, because of the fact that if you're going to claim that they're the specific group that everyone loves referencing is a race, well, technically speaking, genetically speaking, they're technically a hybrid.
Right. Well, we're all technically hybrids, so
well,
I'm definitely a hybrid.
Well,
this is the other thing about it, because I'm of several European descendants and North African. And my dad found out the other year after doing a DNA test that somewhere along the line we got this little tiny bit of Jewish blood in us, and of course I got some Native American in me as well. So I'm this big mutt, and I'm white passing though. So
well, I mean, that's the thing. But when it comes to the Jews, for instance, I would argue they're not an ethnic group, because technically speaking, if they were an ethnic group, why aren't they classified as Israelis then?
Well, I mean that's a whole nother conversation, Kiz.
I'm just saying. I asked this question.
I don't have time for it. I just made an hour-long show, a 2-hour-long show.
I know. You need to go. I'm so sorry.
All right, bud. Well, I'm gonna put you backstage real quick and just say my little goodbyes. But I appreciate you coming on, and I'll get back.
Anytime. Like I said, if I'm free, I'll gladly come on.
Yeah, man. Just let me know.
And also remember, everyone, this is why we need Kizerism.
That's why we need Kizerism. There you go. All right, guys. So appreciate y'all watching. I'm going to have to apologize to my wife. Not that we had anything planned, but I was about to make some very, very sweet baby back ribs, baby. Oh, yeah. I don't have a smoker, but you know what? You can marinate in liquid smoke, and it's a good way to get that smoky flavor. So I need to get those prepared or finished and cooked, because it's going to be about 3 hours of cooking at least. So, guys, I'll be back Tuesday, 3 p.m. with Christian Watson. I appreciate you all watching. This has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, and I wish you all well.